Good morning. This is Angela Coulter, Consciousness Transformation Guide, voice of the awakening, and originator of Trinity Energy Progression, bringing you this week's Living the Shift live stream slash podcast. So, interestingly, where we start today, all I got was vibration and frequency. And there are so many ways we can go, so many directions we can go with this topic. So I sort of had to wait for a while going, well, okay, vibration and frequency. But really it connects to everything. And one of the things that I want to talk about is, so there's a lot of different things. Number one is we are like in physics, we're vibration, we're energy, and energy is a vibration, it's a frequency. And we put things like sound to frequencies and vibrations and hertzes and all this kind of stuff. It is a connecting factor in our entire multiverse. And so when we start to understand the nature of how, vibration frequency works and how it affects us and how we can utilize it as a tool to balance and harmonize ourselves and all kind of stuff. And we know that it comes from within and it's also without and all this kind of stuff. But what's interesting is this, there's so many things and so many topics, so many sciences now that are studying the effects that frequency and vibration have on us, right? So I'm starting at the most mundane because then it gets really woo-woo at the end. I don't like the word woo anymore, but it just is. But we'll go out there. And so, everything has its own vibration. And there is something called the music of the spheres from the spiritual standpoint, metaphysical standpoint, that we talk about that everything in the multiverse has its own vibration, that where it is its perfect note, right? So when I talk about something being, any of us vibrating at our perfect note, that is like the vibration that we've created to be as part of the biggest, the big symphony of the multiverse. So, for example, if you go out to YouTube, you can Google, that was good. If you go out to YouTube, you can search, or you just go to Google and search for videos on the frequency or the vibration, the sound, what they call it, the sound that the Earth makes, the sound that Jupiter makes, the sound that Mars makes. And if you listen to everyone, there's a frequency that we can perceive that is made by this planet, by these other planets and stuff, right? So it goes from all the way out on these like macroscopic levels to down to the individual atom, which vibrates at a frequency of its own, and then different frequencies attract. In our physics, we talk about like vibration attracts like. We talk about that in the law of attraction. So what the whole thing that's cool about it is when we start to look at everything in that way, then we can sort of start to see how our interrelation is so fluid, right? And we can see the interrelation. So what happens is this: we run on frequency, we run on vibration. And many don't understand, like in terms of, say, like energy healing, right? And many like shy away from energy healing, or they say, oh, that's all like out there for me. And I don't understand, but it's all energy. All healing is energy. It's just a matter of how much that we apply to it or utilize it when we talk about it. So what I talk to a lot of people about when they come to see me, or even just in discussion, is when we have anything that's, dissonant or resistant or friction, that would be what I would call energies in separation, energies of separation and duality, right? And that would even be fear, anxiety, anger, all this kind of stuff. We hold a certain, like that holds a certain frequency. And there is somebody who did, and I can never remember the name of it. If anybody who's watching it watching this wants to post it, there's a map of consciousness where they talk about like, and I even have it hanging up here, but I can't even see who it was from, where different frequencies, levels of frequency, were represented by different things like anger, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, anger, pride, courage, And then it goes neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, enlightenment, like all that kind of stuff. And it goes up the scale. And those are different vibrations. And as we're in those different vibrations, different things tend to cluster around them. Which thus comes, from that comes the law of attraction, like that law of attraction theory kind of thing. And in our physics, it's the same thing, like attracts like in energy, like I was saying. But so what happens is if we hold things in fear and hold them in anger and we hold them in our bodies, which we do because it's in our consciousness, then it creates, if we hold it long term, it creates dissonance within our physical bodies, right? So we hold in fear, we hold in anger, shame, self-loathing, doubt, judgment, like all kinds of stuff. And we hold it in and it gets, directed inward. And then what happens is that energy affects the physical cells in our body, which then causes mutations like cancer, causes things like chronic illness, even like normal injuries, normal sicknesses have to do with, think about like what we say, right? Oh, well, I've worn myself down. I've been like not taking care of myself. I've been, staying up all hours, not getting enough sleep, all that kind of stuff. And usually it's because of stress. It's because of something going on. And then what we do is we're holding this vibration of lack and non-nourishment. And as we continue to do that, what we do is we lower the vibration of our physical cells, which then leave them open to mutation, distortion, viruses like colds and things like that. So that's a really easy vibrational way of discussing like what sickness comes from. And we do that with injury. Like we can hurt ourselves because we're holding a certain tension, a certain anxiety, a certain something that's holding us back. And then what we do is then we'll physically hurt ourselves. That reflects in our very 3D, physical body, what it is we're holding on. So what happens is we've forgotten that. We've forgotten that connection on the large part. And so what we do then is we try to look outside of us all the time to alleviate what the issues are, right? So we've gotten addicted to this thing called like, the magic pill of what's going to make me feel better right now. And so we're used to going to the doctor and going to the store and getting some medicine and doing this and doing that. And it's all great because I always tell people we've created stuff in this reality to reflect what it is that we have in the non-physical, and also to help us remember how to shift things. But the challenge is keeping the balance of saying, okay, so we've created this absolutely wonderful plethora of tools to support us in the physical, whether it's medicine or herbs or acupuncture or, crystals or however you want to look at it, no matter which end of the scope you want to go to, right? And they're all great. The thing that's really important to remember is that until though we look at and shift not necessarily look at, but shift what it is that we're holding that's causing us to manifest that within our physical bodies, it's only going to repeat itself in different forms and faces until we finally look at it and get past it. So sometimes it's really blatantly hysterical in terms of how literal it is. Ankles and knee issues, leg issues, hip can all be about moving forward in different ways, like moving forward beyond like something that's tripping you up. You can trip and fall, right? Big message if you're being tripped up about something, or you're tripping yourself up about something. And it's just like so many things, like, and even like viruses and everything. When we hold the energy, there's a lot of different things about that. When we hold the energy of that, if we believe that we're worn down and we allow ourselves to deplete ourselves, right, then we can allow ourselves sort of this opening to allow things like viruses to get in. So that's a very energetic way of looking at things. So in energy healing, what we do is we're looking at the bigger picture. And so it's funny because we'll go to a certain level and then it's like, oh no, now I have to go to the doctor. And it's great to go to the doctor and get feedback and whatever. But here's like, so somebody that I know, and I think I talked about this last week. Was it last week? I don't know. I talked about it in something that I did recently, where, you know, the person just had one thing after the other, and say the sacral chakra area, like 20 years worth of it, got everything taken out and still was having issues, physical issues that just kept on re-manifesting in different ways, because the person never went to look at the core issue of why it is they were holding that energy, that the depletion of energy, the lack of it, or the lower vibration or frequency in that part of their body, which was the sacral chakra, which is the tummy, like, you know, the creative part of us, the sexual part of us, especially, well, in women, it's, yeah, and it's a very prominent thing because it was a woman and it was a lot of her women stuff. Then it changed to other things in the same area. So we tend to skip over those things, right? Because we want the quick fix to get rid of the symptom. And as soon as we get rid of the symptom, we want to forget about it and move on, which is fine for the time being, but then it'll circle around and come back if we haven't resolved it within ourselves. So this is part of the path of consciousness in terms of allowing ourselves like an expanded consciousness. It's all about how much we flow through and we don't hold on to within our physical bodies. Because when we do this and we do this constant, like I call it self-work, it's really not self-work. It's being self-aware, self-observant, and shifting things, right? So many say, well, is that, you know, some voodoo? Is it whatever? And the thing that I teach all the time is we're all healers, and the only person that heals us is ourselves. The people who are professional healers, so to speak, are those, and including myself, and I tell anybody I see this, is all I do is help you access vibrationally what you haven't yet remembered how to access. And I help you to remember how to see it, how to look at it, and how to shift it. And, you know, until you remember, I can help, you know, I can connect with you, and we can connect in that together. And it's a practice. It's a practice of consciousness. And the more we're conscious of it, the more it's easy for us to shift it. You know, it's really interesting. What I find really funny, and there's so much research and science around this today, but for those who need to see it, you know, from their mind, you have, oh, wow, I'm just totally blanking. Wow, I just totally blanking. I can see the cover of the book. And I can't remember the set of experiments on observance and changing stuff and observance. Anybody want to type that in? That's great. It'll come to me. But we've done tons of stuff, quantum physics, like where we're seeing more and more this exploding field in quantum physics on how thought and attention and observance actually creates reality differently. That's really what energy healing is about. It's becoming adept at working in vibration and frequency, and being able to focus that attention. When we talk about all this kind of stuff, we go back to something like the placebo effect, right? So anybody who's heard of the placebo effect, you know, or anybody who hasn't, it's about like when they do say trials on test subjects, they'll do a group of people randomly who don't get the actual medicine, but they get a placebo, which is like, you know, a sugar pill, which doesn't have any effect on them. And the other group will get what looks exactly the same, but is actually the medicine, to see if the medicine's actually effective, or if people think it is, right? Or if it does any better or worse, and there's sort of like a control. So it's funny that the science community overlooks the placebo effect, because the thing about the placebo effect is how many times some people actually do better just because they think they're being tended to. They think they're getting this extra nourishment, or this extra support. And so what they do is they put this energy inside themselves to heal and shift. And many times people just from the placebo effect just naturally start to change and heal. That's so much more powerful, because it's so funny that science and medicine a lot of times overlooks that and sort of minimizes the placebo effect, talking about, oh, well, yeah, it's all psychosomatic. But when we say that, we actually show the proof of energy in terms of our own healing, right? There's a lot of research on that. The Intention Experiments by Lynn McTaggart, that's the book I'm talking about. That's it. Great series, and you can look that, you can Google it. You have examples of what the Intention Experiments were all across the internet. So anyhow, the so I'm talking about this because this is like the starting point of of working with energy, right? And when we do things like what people call psychic work is connecting into the wholeness of energy and sort of pointing your attention to certain things from the bigger picture. But that's not even what we're talking about today. When we go from this energy healing kind of thing and like looking at everything as vibration, and we start seeing everything as vibration, like everything, this mic in front of me, the desk, my body, my shirt, everything has a vibration that it holds that causes its physicality, that helps to cause its physicality, whether it's denser, slower moving, quicker, lighter, you know, we have the different solid, gas, liquid, all that kind of stuff. So in the terms of consciousness, when we look at vibration, we look at bands of vibration are things that we are conscious of or unconscious of based on the vibration we're holding and that we're resonant with. Okay. So it's similar to, like, you know how like they talk about dogs and cats, like animals have a different range of frequencies that they can hear because their bodies can physically perceive them differently than our ears can, right? And our bodies can. So traditionally, you know, we even know that there are frequencies that our ears have not been able to hear, even though a dog or a cat could, or a mouse, or, you know, different animals. Doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means that our ears do not perceive, and they don't vibrate at the frequency of those particular vibrations. So it doesn't even pick that up as existing. Okay. So we have all, and it's really funny to say, like, things that we've seen when we start connecting into all that, and we can see dimensions, multiple dimensions, and different dimensions are different, like, sort of bands of vibration. They hold a different particular frequency. And so for us to perceive these different vibrations is for us to be open and remembering how to access those frequencies and vibrations ourselves. And the higher, like, I guess what we call the higher on the scale, right, that we talk about, you know, the higher the vibration, which is closest to, you know, love, joy, peace, enlightenment, all that kind of stuff. It's being able to perceive all of them as a whole. And we can choose to be in any band of vibration, or we can simply stay in the band that we're in. So the lower the vibration, the more people get, not people, but the more we get a little bit microscopic and tunnel vision about where we are. So if we're in this really dark, heavy, angry, fearful, anxious, anxiety-based place, right? It's almost because what we do is it's a heavy, dense energy, and it's a slower frequency or lower frequency, and it's we sometimes get so stuck in that we can't see anything except what we're in the band of frequencies that we're in. As we get more conscious, as we consciously are aware and observant and remember how to not manipulate, but shift ourselves, you know, vibrationally, the more we can just shift into places that are more inclusive, that we can see more, that we can allow more. And that's why the more we go in this, like, say, meditation, self-observance, practicing self-love and nourishment, and then emanating that out to others, that becomes like this higher band of frequency, right? That becomes our existence in higher bands of frequency, which are always existing. It's just whether or not we are attuned to that particular frequency or vibration, like the dog, right? The dog and the cat that can hear the different frequency. What's interesting is, as we are collectively evolving right now and shifting into a different band of frequency, which is interesting because there is a very physical, there's just a very physical way to also show this, which, if you look, even astronomers are saying how our solar system is going through what is called the photon belt in our galaxy. And we haven't done it, I think, in something like 500,000 years. And the nature, and it's funny because it's this belt that goes around the entire galaxy. And by nature, anything in this belt, as I understand it, anything in this belt physically naturally becomes less dense and shifts its frequency to a much lighter vibration. So it's interesting, we're going through this collective evolution, collective awareness, and and it's making it easier for us to anchor ourselves into a different level of vibration, which then allows us to be more connected, and is really sort of a physical representation and explanation of what all this consciousness stuff, the spiritual stuff is about. But it goes all the way down to our bodies and our health and our well-being. And the thing, I guess what I'm being guided to talk about today is because when we shift into a higher space, a space of love, more love and inclusion, unity, of seeing the universe all is within me, is without me, or whatever, then we choose to stay at the vibrations that are much more natural and relaxing to us, which are those natural, like I always look at the lower vibrations is that we're holding stuff away from us. So we're putting all this energy to be in fear and anxiety and everything else. And the more we get past that to realize it's all, illusion, that we create this, that all our realities are reflections of what's inside of us. And as we shift what's inside of us, what's outside of us shifts too. So then what happens is we then don't have anything to fear or be angry about anymore. And we become far more accepting and loving and healthy, by the way. Then we don't want to do self-sabotaging things because it's not even like in our reality going, why would I do that? I love myself. I'm a divine being, as is everything around, as everyone around me. So as we go on, and then we talk about like bands of frequency. So what happens is a lot of people will say, I get to this frequency, and then all of a sudden, I was talking to somebody yesterday who said, I feel like I'm completely invisible to some of the people in my life. And she was actually sad about it. And I said, well, actually, that's not what I'm getting. I'm not getting that something to be sad about. What I'm getting is that you've just shifted into such a different band of frequency that you're almost invisible to those in other frequency that were in there, that are still there where you've been. I said, I was having that problem. I know a lot of people, I know that we're all on this, consciously observant path, having these issues. Like I was having this issue for a while where I would literally be driving in the car down the road. And sometimes I go through these like couple of days where I'll have this driving down the road, and like somebody right next to me will just start coming over, and like they look like, and they don't even see me. They look right through me and they start coming over, and I have to honk my horn. And there have been several times where that's happened, and they've like freaked out and like, oh my God, like, where'd you come from? And I'm like, I was sitting here the whole time. Sometimes my husband laughs, and he says to stop sneaking up on him, because sometimes I literally, like, I will just walk up to him in the house. I'm not being quiet. I'm not sneaking up, and he'll jump like a foot in the air. One day I was sitting on the futon in my meditation room slash session room, which is right inside my front door. I was just sitting there. And I think I was journaling or something. And my daughter came in from work, and she looked right at me. She walked right past me to go through the room to look for me in the office in the back of the house. And she's like, Mom? And I was like, and she's standing in the door, and I was like, yeah. And she jumped like a foot in the air because she hadn't seen me. So, and it's just because of like where we are in our frequency in the moment. Like, and yeah, sometimes we shift right out of a frequency band where somebody can perceive us, right? So we do sort of become invisible. Part of it in this consciousness, as I understand it, is for us to get to the place as we raise our vibration or allow ourselves to be in that natural state of love more, that we still allow ourselves to see and perceive all the other, bands within it, and to be visible to that without having to be in it, right? So So it's a very different way of seeing everything. It's a very different way of perceiving the world and perceiving our everyday interactions. So this is a very accelerated way of, in a half hour, to explain to you how we talk in vibration and frequency. So what you see a lot more of right now, though, is because we're getting into this place of realizing, you know, words have a frequency, our voices have frequency. There's so many, like what we call like frequency-based healing practices, sound healing, you know, crystal bowls, which are amazing and have their own consciousness. And there's all this stuff because what it is we then allow these frequencies to flow, like of different vibrations, to flow through our bodies to a point where they vibrate and they help to shift the vibration within our bodies as we allow them to shift, because we remember to match that frequency. Like, oh, yeah, and that's why they feel so good typically, because we're like, oh, that feels, I remember this, right? Now, if we're holding something really deeply, like anger and fear or anything like that, when we get hit with those kind of frequencies externally, or it like comes through our physical body, we might resist letting go of the lower stuff because that's where we've been, which can cause friction, or, you know, like people saying, oh, I just don't like that, or just like, oh, I just have to stay away from it. So that's always something to be observant of, saying, okay, well, but maybe it's something to shift within ourselves, because any kind of reaction has to do with what's within us, not what's around us. One person could totally jazz all these people and make, you know, like a lot of people love to be around and everything else, and then somebody could be completely triggered by them just by their presence, and they've done nothing, right? That's all frequency stuff. So in the world of energy healing, in the world of consciousness transformation and enlightenment and all that kind of stuff, it's all based in that. It's beyond words. And if we want to point to something that like connects everything, it is the frequency across everything. It's the frequency across the multiverse. And when we start looking at everything as frequency, we stop seeing separation, and we realize we're all just a part of what I call this multiversal symphony. And our job is to find that perfect note. You know, it's sort of like what I was saying in the beginning, how planets have a sound that we've been able to detect now, right? So Earth has a sound, like I was saying, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Venus, we have different frequency. And to me, it goes back to the wow, I'm losing words. See, I'm losing words because this is all being in frequency. The music of the spheres, as I was talking about earlier. Whenever I say it or even feel into the music of the spheres, it's such a beautiful, natural, loving feeling, because it's like, oh, I relax into that perfect note that I am in this multiverse. And it doesn't make me separate. It just makes me part, like it makes me individual as part of the whole in that divine wholeness. So we went from the little piece of sand to the entire multiverse in 1.5 hour. And maybe this gives you just a little basic, because I realize that, you know, we in the spiritual community or the energy healing community, we, like many believe that everybody understands what all that's about. But I realize that many don't. And we are really accelerating quickly. And the faster we start to understand how we are energy and vibration and frequency, no matter how we want to, no matter how we work with that or allow it or flow with it or incorporate that into our consciousness, it helps us to really shift in a far quicker way than doing a whole bunch of words. And I think that's part of why a lot of, like I said, this frequency kind of healing kind of things, we love music, right? Some music makes us feel great. Some music makes us feel, you know, crappy or more angry or whatever. And that's all about what resonates with us too. So that's this week's kind of play, is to just notice how things affect you, and think about the vibration. Think of like a sound that you love and a sound that you don't like so much. The thing that I was starting to say that I'll wrap up with quick is, as we're shifting too, we are actually shifting our bodies to be able to perceive other kinds of frequency that we have previously not been able to physically perceive. So what's happening? People are hearing things or feeling like they hear things, which is really they're feeling things that they've never been able to feel before, right? So high ringing, low ringing, pulsing, all kinds of stuff. And many times we get afraid of it because, as Marie Curie said, we fear what we don't understand. So if we just think about it, well, actually it's expansion, it's shifting. And for me to allow myself to flow with it, that's a really important thing, right? So like, let me flow with it in a way that it's like pleasant and pleasant and enjoyable. Yeah. So, and to understand it in the way. So like when we get the ringing in the ears, a lot of times there's a message that we're trying to give ourselves, or we're getting from someplace in the multiverse. And then I always say, okay, so can we shift this so I understand consciously what this message is, or allow it to assimilate easily and, with flow. So anyhow, like I said, it's so funny as it was like, I was just like, where do I start with this today? And so that's why I'm sort of like a little bit hesitant, because I'm like, well, I could go in all these different directions and we can talk for hours on this too. But anyhow, for this week, pay attention to the vibrations around you. Pay attention to things like the sounds and things, even like physical things, and how they affect you. Pay attention to your body and ask yourself, what is this showing me within my body? Like, why do I have this sickness? Why do I have this injury? Why do I have this ailment? Show me what to shift and how to do it, because it is that simple. And we try to make it into some massive like rocket science, but it is that simple. And all it is for us is to find the frequencies of looking at like how to shift the vibration, how to shift our physical vibration to match that of what we, of what we look at as like getting back to that natural state of inclusive, unconditional, blissful, peaceful love. So have fun this week, and we'll see you next time. This is Angela Coulter signing out. Have a good one. Thank you.